Lesson 61. Chat. Online. Do you prefer chatting with your friends on the phone or online?
I prefer chatting with my friends online.
Why?
Because I can see them.
How often do you go online to look at your email?
I go online a few times a day to look at my email.
Notice. Do you notice anything different about the classroom today?
Yes, I noticed something different about the classroom today.
What's the first thing you notice about people when you meet them for the first time?
The first thing I notice about people when I meet them for the first time is their eyes.
Free. Busy. Are most people busy on Sunday?
No, most people aren't busy on Sunday. They're free.
What do we mean by a free meal?
By a free meal, we mean that we don't have to pay for it.
Do you believe that the best things in life are free?
Yes, I believe that the best things in life are free.
Lie. Comfortable. Uncomfortable. Pillow. Is the book standing on the table?
No, the book isn't standing on the table, it's lying on the table.
Is it more comfortable to sleep lying down or sitting up?
It's more comfortable to sleep lying down than sitting up.
Do you find it comfortable to sleep without a pillow?
No, I don't find it comfortable to sleep without a pillow. I find it uncomfortable.
Wake up. Woke up. Woken up. Go to sleep. Immediately. Midnight. Do you usually go to sleep before midnight?
No, I don't usually go to sleep before midnight.
Do you generally wake up early?
Yes, I generally wake up early.
What are the three forms of wake up?
The three forms of wake up are wake up, woke up, woken up.
What was the first thing you saw when you woke up today?
The first thing I saw when I woke up today was the ceiling.
Have you ever woken up too late to go to school?
Yes, I've sometimes woken up too late to go to school.
Through. Button. Buttonhole. What am I doing?
You're putting your pen through the buttonhole in your shirt.
When you look through your bedroom window, what do you see?
When I look through my bedroom window, I see some trees.
If you went from London to Rome, which cities would you perhaps have to go through?
If I went from London to Rome, I would perhaps have to go through Paris, Milan, etc.
Career. Would you like a career in the army?
No, I wouldn't like a career in the army.
Cross. Crossroads. Test. What's this?
It's a cross.
When a teacher puts a cross next to an answer in a written test, what does it mean?
When a teacher puts a cross next to an answer in a written test, it means the answer is wrong.
Are there any crossroads at the end of the street where you live?
Yes, there are some crossroads at the end of the street where I live.
Danger. Dangerous. Dangerously. Alcohol. Detective. What colour do we use for danger?
We use red for danger.
Is it dangerous to drive after drinking alcohol?
Yes, it's dangerous to drive after drinking alcohol.
Would you like to live dangerously like a detective? Somebody like Sherlock Holmes, for example.
Yes, I'd like to live dangerously like a detective. Somebody like Sherlock Holmes.
Should. Obligation. Alternative. Ambulance. What's the difference between these two sentences? I must study and I should study.
The difference between those two sentences is that I must study means that I have no alternative, whereas I should study means I have alternatives, but that studying is the right thing for me to do.
How do we translate I must study?
We translate I must study with,
Do you think people should be more polite in the shops and streets?
yes, I think people should be more polite in the shops and streets.
Do you agree that students should study hard?
Yes, I agree that students should study hard.
Do you agree that young people should help the old?
Yes, I agree that young people should help the old.
What should we do when somebody is dangerously ill?
When somebody is dangerously ill, we should immediately call an ambulance.
What do you think you should do if you want to make a lot of money?
If you want to make a lot of money, I think you should work very hard.
Correct. Grammatical. Do you correct your dictations during the lesson?
No, I don't correct my dictations during the lesson. I correct them after the lesson.
In a Callan Method lesson, does the teacher correct your grammatical mistakes?
Yes, in a Callan Method lesson, the teacher corrects my grammatical mistakes.
How can we correct our mistakes in our pronunciation?
We can correct our mistakes in our pronunciation by listening and speaking as much as possible.
Problem. Cause. Colleague. Boss. Freedom. Justice. If you have a problem with a colleague at work, should you speak to your boss about it?
Yes, if I have a problem with a colleague at work, I should speak to my boss about it.
Can smoking cause health problems?
Yes, smoking can cause health problems.
In history, have many people died for the causes of freedom and justice?
Yes, in history many people have died for the causes of freedom and justice.
As we have now studied about 1,000 words and a lot of the grammar, can you hold a simple conversation in English?
Yes, as we have now studied about 1,000 words and a lot of the grammar, I can hold a simple conversation in English.
As you are not tall enough to reach the ceiling, what would you have to do if you wanted to reach it?
As I am not tall enough to reach the ceiling, I would have to put a chair on the table and stand on the chair if I wanted to reach it.
That is. Give me a sentence with that is in it.
Everybody loves that film. That is, everybody I've spoken to. We will go to the cinema this evening. That is, if we have enough money.
Bone. Have you ever broken any of the bones in your body?
Yes, I've broken one of the bones in my body.
When? How?
A few years ago, I fell off my bicycle and broke my arm.
Lesson 62. Life. Lives. The poor. The rich. What's the plural of life?
The plural of life is lives.
Do you think the lives of the poor are happier than those of the rich?
Yes, I think the lives of the poor are happier than those of the rich.
Although. Make a sentence with the word although in it.
Although the food was not very nice, I ate it because I was hungry.
Although you're now able to hold a simple conversation in English, do you think you should keep studying?
Yes, although I'm now able to hold a simple conversation in English, I think I should keep studying.
Are some people always happy although they have problems in their lives?
Yes, some people are always happy although they have problems in their lives.
Cook. Tasty. Pasta. Is there a restaurant near here that cooks tasty food?
Yes, there's a restaurant near here that cooks tasty food.
Is it difficult to cook pasta?
No, it isn't difficult to cook pasta. It's easy.
Are you a good cook?
Yes, I'm a good cook.
Independent. Do you think that all the countries of the world should be independent?
Yes, I think that all the countries of the world should be independent.
Origin. Do many European languages have their origins in Latin?
Yes, many European languages have their origins in Latin.
Belong to. Why don't you take this book home with you after the lesson?
I don't take that book home with me after the lesson because it doesn't belong to me.
Who does that pen belong to?
This pen belongs to me.
If a factory belonged to you, do you think you would be able to make a lot of money?
Yes, if a factory belonged to me, I think I'd be able to make a lot of money.
Could, vice versa. What can we use instead of would be able in conditional sentences?
We can use could instead of would be able in conditional sentences.
Give me an example, please.
If I was a bird, I could fly.
Now I'm going to ask you some questions with could, and you answer with would be able, and vice versa. If you were very, very tall, could you touch the ceiling?
Yes, if I were very, very tall, I would be able to touch the ceiling.
If you were a doctor, would you be able to help people who were ill?
Yes, if I were a doctor, I could help people who were ill.
If you were as strong as a horse, could you lift a man above your head with only one hand?
Yes, if I were as strong as a horse, I would be able to lift a man above my head with only one hand.
Throw. What am I going to do?
You're going to throw your pen at the window.
Do you think you could throw a stone further than I can?
Yes, I think I could throw a stone further than you can.
Alive? Dead. Is Napoleon alive?
No, Napoleon isn't alive, he's dead.
Drop. Go without. What am I doing?
You're dropping your pen on the table.
What's the pen doing?
The pen's dropping on the table.
What would happen if I dropped a glass on the floor?
If you dropped a glass on the floor, it would break.
What's the longest time you have ever gone without drinking a drop of water?
The longest I've ever gone without drinking a drop of water is about 10 hours.
Assassinate. What happened to President Kennedy?
President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963.
Usual. Unusual. Did anything unusual happen to you yesterday?
Yes, something unusual happened to me yesterday.
What?
I found £20 in the street.
Is it usual for people in your country to eat hot food for breakfast?
Yes, it's usual for people in my country to eat hot food for breakfast.
Is it unusual for children to find coffee tasty?
Yes, it's unusual for children to find coffee tasty.
Still. Yet. In progress. What's the difference between still and yet?
The difference between still and yet is that we use still for something that is in progress at the moment, whereas we use yet for something that has not begun or happened. We generally use still in positive sentences, whereas we generally use yet in questions and negative sentences.
Give me some examples, please.
It's still winter, it isn't spring yet.
Has the lesson finished yet?
No, the lesson hasn't finished yet. It's still in progress.
Have we finished speaking yet?
No, we haven't finished speaking yet. We're still speaking.
Have they gone home yet?
No, they haven't gone home yet. They're still here.
Has the spring begun yet?
No, the spring hasn't begun yet. It's still winter.
Will I still be in this country in 2 weeks' time?
Yes, you'll still be in this country in 2 weeks' time.
Special.
Lesson 63. Clean. Dirty. Dirt. Know of. Are the bottoms of your shoes clean?
No, the bottoms of my shoes aren't clean. They're dirty.
When our shoes are dirty, what should we do?
When our shoes are dirty, we should clean them.
Which do you think is the cleanest city you know of?
I think Tokyo is the cleanest city I know of.
And which do you think is the dirtiest?
I think Liverpool is the dirtiest.
Which do you think is less unpleasant, the dirt of the city or the dirt of the country, of the farm, etc.?
I think the dirt of the country is less unpleasant than the dirt of the city.
To be afraid. Do you remember if you were afraid of the dark when you were a little child?
Yes, I remember I was afraid of the dark when I was a little child.
Would you be afraid to go round the world in a small open boat?
Yes, I would be afraid to go round the world in a small open boat.
Do people shake when they feel very afraid?
Yes, people shake when they feel very afraid.
Guard. On your guard. Off your guard. What's the best way to guard against becoming ill?
The best way to guard against becoming ill is to eat healthy food, sleep well, and do exercise.
Must we be on our guard when we buy something from a man selling things in the street?
Yes, we must be on our guard when we buy something from a man selling things in the street.
Why?
Because maybe we won't be able to find him again if there's a problem with the thing we've bought.
What's the opposite of on your guard?
The opposite of on your guard is off your guard.
Calm. Quietly. What's the best way to calm somebody down when he's very angry?
The best way to calm somebody down when he's very angry is to speak quietly and pleasantly to him.
Are we having calm weather at the moment?
Yes, we're having calm weather at the moment.
If I were. King. Person. First, second person, etc. What are the two ways of forming the second conditional with the verb to be?
The two ways of forming the second conditional with the verb to be are if I was and if I were.
If you were a millionaire, where would you live?
If I were a millionaire, I would live in Hawaii.
Why?
Because it's beautiful.
If I were you, which language would I speak?
If you were me, you would speak Spanish.
If you were a king, what would your wife be called?
If I were a king, my wife would be called a queen.
If there wasn't a light in this room, would we be able to see well when it got dark?
No, if there wasn't a light in this room, we wouldn't be able to see well when it got dark. We would see badly.
If there weren't any food in the world, would we all die?
Yes. If there weren't any food in the world, we would all die.
If you weren't you, who would you like to be?
If I weren't me, I would like to be George Clooney.
Why?
Because he's handsome and has a lot of money.
If I were you. Advice. Expression. Especially. Can we use the expression, if I were you, to give advice to somebody?
Yes, we can use the expression if I were you to give advice to somebody.
Give me an example, please.
If I were you, I would eat more vegetables. Or, I wouldn't buy that car if I were you.
What's the biggest problem in your life at the moment?
The biggest problem in my life at the moment is learning English.
Give him some advice, please.
If I were you, I would study hard.
Win, won, won. Lottery. What's another opposite of the verb lose besides find?
Another opposite of the verb lose besides find is win.
What are the three forms of win?
The three forms of win are win, won, won.
Does your country usually win at football?
No, my country doesn't usually win at football. It usually loses.
Do you do the lottery?
Yes, I do the lottery.
Have you ever won?
No, I've never won.
If you won £1 million, what would you do with it?
If I won £1 million, I would buy a large house.
Useful. Useless. Possess. Is this pen useless?
No, this pen isn't useless. It's useful.
What do we do with useless things?
We throw useless things away.
What are the two most useful things you possess?
The two most useful things I possess are my phone and my computer.
Do you think that what you're learning now will be useful to you later on in life?
Yes, I think that what I'm learning now will be useful to me later on in life.
Why?
Because it will help me get work and speak to people from other countries.
Take by surprise.
Lesson 64. Contraction of would. Contract. What's the contraction of I would?
The contraction of I would is I'd.
What are the contractions of you would, he would, she would, etc.?
The contractions of you would, he would, she would, etc. are you'd, he'd, she'd, it'd, we'd, you'd, they'd.
If you went to the cinema this evening, which film would you see?
If I went to the cinema this evening, I'd see The Artist.
If I were you, which language would I speak?
If you were me, you'd speak Italian.
If a plant had no water, would it die?
Yes, if a plant had no water, it'd die.
Contraction of would with other words. What's the contraction of bookwood?
The contraction of bookwood is booked.
Lesson would. Who would? What would? Which would?
Lessoned, who'd, what'd, which'd.
If you were a king, what'd your wife be called?
If I were a king, my wife would be called a queen.
If you lost your way in a large city, who'd you ask?
If I lost my way in a large city, I'd ask a policeman.
If today were Sunday, what'd tomorrow be?
If today were Sunday, tomorrow'd be Monday.
Sandwich. Cheese. When office workers are too busy to leave their desks for lunch, do they often just have a quick sandwich?
Yes, when office workers are too busy to leave their desks for lunch, they often just have a quick sandwich.
What kind of things do we put in sandwiches?
We put meat, cheese, egg, etc. in sandwiches.
Fault. Faultless. Faulty. Fix. What's your biggest fault?
My biggest fault is that I get angry easily.
If your computer was faulty, would you know how to fix the fault?
No, if my computer was faulty, I wouldn't know how to fix the fault.
Are your dictations usually faultless?
No, my dictations aren't usually faultless. They usually contain mistakes.
If a student makes a mistake in his dictation, is it usually his fault or the teacher's fault?
If a student makes a mistake in his dictation, it's usually his fault, but it could sometimes be the teacher's fault.
Okay. All right. What can we say instead of okay?
Instead of okay, we can say all right.
Compare. Comparison. Have something in common. Can we compare Michelangelo with Napoleon?
No, we can't compare Michelangelo with Napoleon.
Why not?
Because they were two completely different kinds of people who did different things from each other.
What must two people or things have if we want to make a comparison between them?
If we want to make a comparison between two people or things, they must have something in common.
Ice. Cool. What do we use ice for?
We use ice for putting in drinks to cool them, etc.
Pour. What am I doing?
You're pouring some water from a bottle into a glass.
Unite. Do you think that all the countries of the world will unite one day?
No, I don't think that all the countries of the world will unite one day.
Even. Surprising. Give me a sentence with even in it.
She speaks Russian, German, French, and even Chinese. He was very impolite. He didn't even say hello. It's very simple. Even a child could understand it.
Mix. Mixture. pink. Do we generally mix sugar with potatoes?
No, we don't generally mix sugar with potatoes.
Do you think a mixture of tea and coffee would make a pleasant drink?
No, I don't think a mixture of tea and coffee would make a pleasant drink. It would make an unpleasant drink.
If you mixed some red and white paint together, what would you get?
If I mixed some red and white paint together, I'd get pink paint.
Care. Care for. Take care of. Who cared for you when you were a child?
My mother cared for me when I was a child.
Do you think the young should take care of the old?
Yes, I think the young should take care of the old.
Do you take good care of your health?
Yes, I take good care of my health.
Do you care what people think or say about you?
Yes, I care what people think or say about me.
Appointment. Keep an appointment. Hurry. Take your time. If you were late for a very important appointment, would you take your time?
No, if I were late for a very important appointment, I wouldn't take my time, I'd hurry.
Why?
Because it's important to keep appointments that we've made.
Why is it sometimes a bad thing to hurry?
It's sometimes a bad thing to hurry because we often make mistakes when we hurry.
Would you take your time going home if somebody told you your house was on fire?
No, I wouldn't take my time going home if somebody told me my house was on fire. I'd hurry.
Plenty of. What do the words plenty of mean?
The words plenty of mean more than enough.
Do people hurry when they have plenty of time?
No, people don't hurry when they have plenty of time. They take their time.
What's the opposite of plenty of water?
The opposite of plenty of water is little water or not enough water.
Lesson 65. 4. Since. Period. Point. What's the difference between for and since?
The difference between for and since is that we use the word for when we say a period of time, whereas we use the word since when we say the point at which the period began.
Give me some examples of for.
For half an hour, for 2 weeks.
Now give me some examples of since.
Since 6 o'clock, since last June.
How long have you been in this room for?
I've been in this room for half an hour.
Since when has she been in this room?
She's been in this room since 2:30.
How long have you lived in this town for?
I've lived in this town for 6 months.
Since when has she lived in this town?
She's lived in this town since July.
About how long have you known me for?
I've known you for about a year.
Since when has she known me?
She's known you since last June.
Have you been able to speak English for more than 10 years?
No, I haven't been able to speak English for more than 10 years.
Have you been able to speak English since you were a young child?
Yes, I've been able to speak English since I was a young child.
Kitchen. Fridge. Freezer. Cooker. Sink. Microwave. What kind of things does a kitchen usually contain?
A kitchen usually contains a fridge, a freezer, a cooker, a sink, etc.
Does meat last longer in a fridge or a freezer?
Meat lasts longer in a freezer.
Why do some people like using microwaves?
Some people like using microwaves because they cook food very quickly.
Studies. Did you find English pronunciation a little difficult at the beginning of your studies?
Yes, I found English pronunciation a little difficult at the beginning of my studies.
Do you hope your English studies will help your future career?
Yes, I hope my English studies will help my future career.
Lend. Lent. Lent. Return. Would you lend me some money if I asked you?
Yes, I'd lend you some money if you asked me.
If you lent something to somebody and they didn't return it, what did you do?
If I lent something to somebody and they didn't return it, I'd keep asking for it back.
First name. Surname. What's your first name?
My first name's Anushka.
What's your surname?
My surname's Holmes.
Actor. Actress. Famous. Film star. Would you like to be famous?
Yes, I'd like to be famous.
What's a film star?
A film star is a famous actor or actress in the cinema world.
Tell me the names of some famous film stars, please.
Johnny Depp, Penelope Cruz, etc.
Name a few famous people in history.
A few famous people in history are Shakespeare, Einstein, Michelangelo, etc.
Industrial. Agricultural. Region. What's the most industrial city in your country?
London is the most industrial city in my country.
What's the most agricultural region of your country?
The southwest is the most agricultural region of my country.
Apologize. Apology. Keep somebody waiting. What do we say when we apologize for doing something wrong?
When we apologize for doing something wrong, we say, "I'm sorry."
If you keep somebody waiting for a long time, should you apologize?
Yes, if you keep somebody waiting for a long time, you should apologize.
What's the noun of the verb apologize?
The noun of the verb apologize is apology.
Avoid. How can we help to avoid becoming ill?
We can help to avoid becoming ill by living a healthy life.
Bend. Do you have to bend down if you want to touch your feet?
No, I don't have to bend down if I want to touch my feet, but it would be the easiest way.
Century. Which do you think was the best century in history to live in?
I think the 16th century was the best century in history to live in.
Fashion. Do you like the fashion in clothes at the moment?
No, I don't like the fashion in clothes at the moment.
Gate. Does this school have a gate outside it?
Yes, this school has a gate outside it.
Worry. Be worried. Do some people worry too much?
Yes, some people worry too much.
Are you worried about your future?
Yes, I'm worried about my future.
Why should you not worry if you don't immediately understand some of the grammar in this book?
I shouldn't worry if I don't immediately understand some of the grammar in this book because I will practice it again in other lessons and I can study it at home.
Run. When we're in a hurry, what must we do?
When we're in a hurry, we must run.
What's the furthest you've ever run?
The furthest I've ever run is 1 kilometre.
Lesson 66. Past continuous. I was speaking. Particular. While. When do we use the present continuous?
We use the present continuous for an action that is in progress now.
Give me an example, please.
I am speaking English now.
When do we use the past continuous?
We use the past continuous for an action that was in progress at a particular time in the past.
Give me an example, please.
I was speaking English at this time yesterday.
Were you chatting to anybody when I came into the room at the beginning of the lesson?
Yes, I was chatting to somebody when you came into the room at the beginning of the lesson.
Were the students standing or sitting when I left the classroom at the end of the last lesson?
The students were sitting when you left the classroom at the end of the last lesson.
Was it raining while you were coming to school today?
No, it wasn't raining while I was coming to school today.
What were you doing at this time last Sunday?
I was meeting with my friends at this time last Sunday.
Do you think most people in this town were sleeping at midnight last night?
Yes, I think most people in this town were sleeping at midnight last night.
Where were you living 10 years ago?
I was living in Japan 10 years ago.
Earn. About how much does a doctor earn a year in your country?
A doctor earns about £60,000 a year in my country.
Formal. Informal. Jeans. Trainer. How do you do? Would it be okay for a man to wear jeans and trainers if he was going to a formal dinner?
No, it wouldn't be okay for a man to wear jeans and trainers if he was going to a formal dinner. He should wear a suit and tie.
When we meet somebody for the first time, what can we say?
When we meet somebody for the first time, we can say, "Nice to meet you."
And what do we say if we want to be more formal?
If we want to be more formal, we say, "How do you do?"
And what does the other person reply?
The other person replies, "How do you do?"
Persuade. Is it easy to persuade people to give their money away?
No, it isn't easy to persuade people to give their money away. It's difficult.
Hairdresser. How often do you go to the hairdressers?
I go to the hairdressers about 24 times a year.
So equals very. Interesting. Exciting. Why do you think some films are so popular?
I think some films are so popular because they tell interesting or exciting stories.
Grammatically. Is it grammatically correct to say, "I've seen her yesterday"?
No, it isn't grammatically correct to say, "I've seen her yesterday." We should say, "I saw her yesterday" instead.
Bathroom. Bath. Shower. Toilet. Basin. What does a bathroom usually contain?
A bathroom usually contains a bath or shower, a toilet and a basin.
Which do you prefer, baths or showers?
I prefer showers.
What's a rain shower?
A rain shower is a short period of rain.
Mirror. Reflect. What does a mirror do?
A mirror reflects light.
In which rooms in a house do we usually find a mirror?
We usually find a mirror in a bathroom or a bedroom.
Active and passive voice. Active. Passive. Subject. Object. Active voice. John broke the window. Passive voice. The window was broken by John. To be plus past participle. By. What does the active voice communicate?
The active voice communicates that the subject does the action.
What does the passive voice communicate?
The passive voice communicates that the subject receives the action.
How do we form the passive voice?
We form the passive voice with the verb to be and a past participle.
Give me some examples, please.
My car was washed last month. Many computers are made in China. The pupils will be taught by the teacher.
Now I'm going to give you a sentence in the active voice, and I want you to put it into the passive voice. John eats the pasta.
The pasta is eaten by John.
John ate the pasta.
The pasta was eaten by John.
John has eaten the pasta.
The pasta has been eaten by John.
John will eat the pasta.
The pasta will be eaten by John.
John is eating the pasta.
The pasta is being eaten by John.
John was eating the pasta.
The pasta was being eaten by John.
John would eat the pasta.
The pasta would be eaten by John.
Now we're going to practice with some different sentences. I clean my car every Saturday.
My car is cleaned by me every Saturday.
She forgot him.
He was forgotten by her.
My boss is going to write that email.
That email is going to be written by my boss.
We are fixing the car.
The car is being fixed by us.
They have followed all the advice.
All the advice has been followed by them.
Lesson 67. Force. Make somebody do. Do I force you to give long answers during the lesson?
Yes, you force me to give long answers during the lesson.
Why?
Because it is important to speak as much as possible.
When you were a child, did your parents make you eat your vegetables?
Yes, when I was a child, my parents made me eat my vegetables.
What kind of films make you laugh?
The kind of films that make me laugh are cartoons.
Snack. Break. Biscuit. Crisps. What is a snack?
A snack is something small that people eat between meals, like a sandwich or a bag of crisps.
Which would you prefer as a snack during a morning break? A bag of crisps or some biscuits?
I'd prefer some biscuits as a snack during a morning break.
To be born. Where were you born?
I was born in London.
How soon after you were born did you learn to walk?
I learnt to walk about a year after I was born.
Murder. Do you like reading books with stories about murders in them?
Yes, I like reading books with stories about murders in them.
Prison. Would you like to see inside a prison?
Yes, I'd like to see inside a prison.
Why?
Because I'd find it interesting.
Pupil. What's a pupil?
A pupil is a child who's in school.
Do most pupils in your country have to wear a uniform?
Yes, most pupils in my country have to wear a uniform.
Root. What do we call the part of a tree that's in the land?
We call the part of a tree that's in the land the roots.
Memory. Have you got a good memory?
Yes, I've got a good memory.
Another contraction of the verb to be. I'm not. I'm not. You aren't. You're not. He isn't. He's not. She isn't. She's not. It isn't. It's not. We aren't. We're not. You aren't. You're not. They aren't. They're not. What can we use instead of I'm not, you aren't, he isn't, etc.?
Instead of I'm not, you aren't, he isn't, etc., we can use I'm not, you're not, he's not, she's not, it's not, we're not, you're not, they're not.
Cross. If you want to go from one side of the road to the other, what must you do?
If I want to go from one side of the road to the other, I must cross the road.
What must you do before crossing the road?
I must look both ways before crossing the road.
If you wanted to go from here to Scotland, would you have to cross the sea, or would you be able to go all the way by land?
If I wanted to go from here to Scotland, I'd be able to go all the way by land. I wouldn't have to cross the sea.
Think of. What was the first thing you thought of when you woke up this morning?
The first thing I thought of when I woke up this morning was the time.
Safe. Safety. On your own. What's the opposite of the word dangerous?
The opposite of the word dangerous is safe.
Do you think it's safe to shop online?
Yes, I think it's safe to shop online.
Do parents often worry about their children's safety?
Yes, parents often worry about their children's safety.
Is it safe for young children to cross the road on their own?
No, it isn't safe for young children to cross the road on their own.
Do you like going on holiday on your own?
Yes, I like going on holiday on my own.
Lay. What's the past of the verb to lie?
The past of the verb to lie is lay.
How long did you lie in bed for last night?
I lay in bed for 8 hours last night.
Sir, Madam, Gentleman, Lady, Customer, Officer. When do people use the words Sir and Madam?
People use the words sir and madam to be polite when they're speaking to their customers in a shop, their officers in the army, or their teachers at school.
Give me an example, please.
Excuse me, sir, can I help you?
When do we use the words gentleman and lady?
We use the words gentleman and lady instead of man and woman when we want to sound polite.
Give me an example, please.
Which of these two gentlemen gave you the book? And will you ask that lady her name, please?
Title. What's your title?
My title is Mrs.
Give me examples of sir and lady used as titles.
Some examples of sir and lady used as titles are Sir Paul McCartney and Lady Diana.
Standard. Height. Which two countries have the highest standards of living in the world?
Norway and Australia have the highest standards of living in the world.
What's the standard height for a man in this country?
The standard height for a man in this country is 1.75 meters.
Colourful.
Lesson 68. Would you say? Opinion. When do we use the expression, would you say?
We use the expression would you say when we ask somebody for his opinion about something. It means, do you think?
Would you say that a king's life was better than that of the average man?
No, I wouldn't say that a king's life was better than that of the average man.
Which tense do we use after the expression, would you say?
We use the past tense after the expression would you say.
What would you say was the best way to remember something?
I'd say that the best way to remember something was to repeat it often.
Look plus adjective. If the sky looks dark and cloudy, do you sometimes decide not to go out?
Yes, if the sky looks dark and cloudy, I sometimes decide not to go out.
When your shoes look dirty, what do you do?
When my shoes look dirty, I clean them.
Get in. Get out of. Get on. Get off. Taxi. Fare. Do we pay the driver when we get in a taxi?
No, we don't pay the driver when we get in a taxi. We pay when we get out of a taxi.
In your country, do you have to buy a ticket before getting on a bus?
Yes, in my country you have to buy a ticket before getting on a bus.
How much is the bus fare from here to where you live?
The bus fare from here to where I live is £2.
Royal. Has your country got a royal family?
Yes, my country's got a royal family.
Mud. Countryside. How do we get mud on our shoes?
We get mud on our shoes by walking in the countryside in the rain.
Crowd. Crowded. Are famous actors often surrounded by crowds when they go out in public?
Yes, famous actors are often surrounded by crowds when they go out in public.
Are the buses in this town usually crowded in the morning?
Yes, the buses in this town are usually crowded in the morning.
Captain. Team. Have you ever been the captain of a sports team?
Yes, I've been the captain of a sports team.
Tell me the name of a famous sea captain.
The name of a famous sea captain is Captain Cook, Captain Nemo, etc.
Wide. Narrow. Which is the widest street in the place where you live and which is the narrowest?
Oxford Street is the widest street in the place where I live, and Berwick Street is the narrowest.
Flag. National. What colour is the flag of your country?
The flag of my country is red, white and blue.
Do you know the origin of your national flag?
Yes, I know the origin of my national flag.
Grass. Live on. Name an animal that lives on grass.
A horse is an animal that lives on grass.
What happens to grass if there's no rain?
If there's no rain, grass becomes yellow and then it dies.
Tower. Where is the nearest tower to the place where you live?
The nearest tower to the place where I live is the Tower of London.
Wet. Dry. Are the streets dry when it rains?
No, the streets aren't dry when it rains. They're wet.
If you walked in the rain without an umbrella, what'd happen?
If I walked in the rain without an umbrella, I'd get wet.
If you got wet, what did you have to do with your clothes?
If I got wet, I'd have to take my clothes off and hang them up to dry.
Through. What's the past of throw?
The past of throw is through.
What'd happen if I threw a stone at the window?
If you threw a stone at the window'd break.
Loud. Turn up. Turn down. If your TV is turned up too loud, what do you do?
If my TV is turned up too loud, I turn it down.
Reflexive pronouns. Myself. Yourself. Himself. Herself. Itself. Oneself. Ourselves. Yourselves. Themselves. Consequently, protect. What are the reflexive pronouns?
The reflexive pronouns are myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, oneself, ourselves, yourselves, and themselves.
When do we use a reflexive pronoun?
We use a reflexive pronoun when the subject and object are the same person or thing.
Is it right to say, I looked at me in the mirror?
No, it isn't right to say I looked at me in the mirror.
Why not?
Because the subject and object are the same person.
What must we say instead?
We must say, I looked at myself in the mirror instead.
Do you think it'd be easy for me to teach myself Chinese?
No, I don't think it'd be easy for you to teach yourself Chinese.
Why not?
Because Chinese is a difficult language to learn.
Did you wash yourself when you were a baby?
No, I didn't wash myself when I was a baby. My mother washed me.
What did you do if you saw a man trying to kill himself?
If I saw a man trying to kill himself, I'd try to stop him or call the police.
Have you ever seen a bird washing itself?
Yes, I've seen a bird washing itself.
Do you think one can teach oneself a language?
Yes, I think one can teach oneself a language.
What do we carry to protect ourselves from the rain?
We carry an umbrella to protect ourselves from the rain.
Lesson 69. Thorough. Thoroughly. What does the word thorough mean?
The word thorough means complete.
In which season of the year do people generally give their houses a thorough cleaning?
People generally give their houses a thorough cleaning in spring.
If you jumped into the sea, would you get thoroughly wet?
Yes, if I jumped into the sea, I'd get thoroughly wet.
What kind of things make you thoroughly tired?
The kind of things that make me thoroughly tired are hard physical work, studying a lot without a break, not enough sleep, etc.
Accident. By accident. If you drove a car on the left-hand side of the road in America, France, etc., instead of on the right, what would happen?
If I drove a car on the left-hand side of the road in America, France, etc., instead of on the right, I'd have an accident.
Have you ever seen an accident on the road?
No, I've never seen an accident on the road.
If you took something by accident that didn't belong to you, what did you do?
If I took something by accident that didn't belong to me, I'd return it.
Careful, careless, carefully, carelessly. Do people become careless when they're in great danger?
No, people don't become careless when they're in great danger. They become very careful.
Do you write carefully?
Yes, I write carefully.
What could happen if you were careless when crossing the road?
If I were careless when crossing the road, I could have an accident.
Of all the people you know, who dresses the most carelessly?
Of all the people I know, my father dresses the most carelessly.
Own. Do you own all the clothes you're wearing, or do any of them belong to somebody else?
I don't own all the clothes I'm wearing. Some of them belong to somebody else.
What would you like to own more than anything else?
I'd like to own a flat more than anything else.
Who owns the place where you live?
I don't know who owns the place where I live.
Carry on. Retire. Do people in your country usually carry on working after they reach the age of 65?
No, people in my country don't usually carry on working after they reach the age of 65. They retire.
Prize. Have you ever won a prize for anything?
No, I've never won a prize for anything.
2. Give me a sentence with the word to, meaning also.
He wants a biscuit and I want one too.
At least. Give me a sentence with the words at least in it.
I've asked him at least 6 times and each time he has forgotten. He didn't do very well in the exam, but at least he passed.
Widely. Which is one of the most widely used English adjectives?
One of the most widely used English adjectives is nice.
Is English the most widely spoken language in the world?
Yes, English is the most widely spoken language in the world.
Manner. Pig. Why are good manners so important in life?
Good manners are so important in life because they make life easier and more pleasant.
What do we mean when we say that somebody has the manners of a pig?
When we say that somebody has the manners of a pig, we mean that they have very bad manners.
Do people in very hot countries dress in the same manner as people in very cold countries?
No, people in very hot countries don't dress in the same manner as people in very cold countries. They dress in a different manner.
Asleep. Awake. Will you still be asleep at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning?
No, I won't still be asleep at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be awake.
Will you still be awake at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning?
No, I won't still be awake at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be asleep.
Hospital. Nurse. Who takes care of us when we're in hospital?
Nurses and doctors take care of us when we're in hospital.
Purpose. In order to. So that. Take exercise. Answer the following questions with in order to. Why do people eat?
People eat in order to live.
For what purpose do people work?
People work in order to earn money.
What must we do in order to keep in good health?
In order to keep in good health, we must sleep well, eat healthy food, take plenty of exercise, not smoke, etc.
What do you think is the purpose of living?
I think the purpose of living is to be happy and to make others happy, etc.
Give me an example of so that, please.
He put the food in the fridge so that it would stay fresh.
Notice. Are there any notices hanging up in the school?
Yes, there are some notices hanging up in the school.
Where?
On the walls.
What do they say?
They give people information.
Lane. What are the three forms of lie?
The three forms of lie are lie, lay, lane.
What's the longest you've ever lain in bed for when you've been ill?
The longest I've ever lain in bed for when I've been ill is about 5 days.
Point at, point out, indicate. What's the difference between to point at and to point out?
The difference between to point at and to point out is that we use to point at for the action of pointing the finger at an object, whereas to point out means to indicate something among different things.
What am I doing?
You're pointing at the light.
Point at the picture on the wall, please. What are you doing?
I'm pointing at the picture on the wall.
Point out the mistake in this sentence, please. I've gone to the cinema this week.
We can't say I've gone to the cinema this week. We must say I've been to the cinema this week.
What's she doing?
She's pointing out the mistake in that sentence.
Grave. In your country, do people visit their relatives' graves?
Yes, in my country, people visit their relatives' graves.
Neck. Is it bad for your neck to sleep without a pillow?
Yes, it's bad for your neck to sleep without a pillow.
Flame. Can we have a fire without flames?
Yes, we can have a fire without flames.
Flight. How long is the flight from here to Auckland?
The flight from here to Auckland is about 24 hours.
Lesson 70. May, might, palace, parliament. What do the words may and might express?
The words may and might express the idea of perhaps.
What's the difference between may and might?
The difference between may and might is that we cannot use may in the second conditional.
Give me an example.
If I went to London, I might visit Buckingham Palace.
Do you think it may rain later?
Yes, I think it may rain later.
What do you think I might have in my pocket?
I think you might have some money in your pocket.
What might happen if you didn't look both ways before crossing the road?
An accident might happen if I didn't look both ways before crossing the road.
What might you see if you went to London?
I might see Buckingham Palace, the Houses of Parliament, Trafalgar Square, Piccadilly Circus, etc. if I went to London.
Do you think there might be another world war?
No, I don't think there'll be another world war.
Arrive at. Point. Arrive in. Area. Airport. Passport. What's the difference between arrive at and arrive in?
The difference between arrive at and arrive in is that we arrive at a point, whereas we arrive in an area.
What time do you arrive at school?
I arrive at school at 11 o'clock.
If you arrived at a foreign airport without your passport, what might happen?
If I arrived at a foreign airport without my passport, I might not be able to enter the country.
Cafe. What is a cafe?
A cafe is a small informal restaurant where you can get light meals, snacks and drinks.
Oh. Do you owe me any money?
Yes, I owe you some money.
Do I owe you any money?
No, you don't owe me any money.
Verb plus back. Souvenir. What does it mean to give back?
To give back means to return.
When you go on holiday, what do you bring back with you?
When I go on holiday, I bring back souvenirs with me.
Are you going to go back home immediately after the lessons ended?
Yes, I'm going to go back home immediately after the lessons ended.
When people lend you money, do you always pay it back when promised?
Yes, when people lend me money, I always pay it back when promised.
Do you know anybody who has retired but then later gone back to work?
Yes, I know somebody who has retired but then later gone back to work.
Pride. Proud. Normal. Normally. Take pride in. What is your normal breakfast?
My normal breakfast is coffee and bread.
Do people normally feel proud when they do well in exams?
Yes, people normally feel proud when they do well in exams.
Do you take pride in your work?
Yes, I take pride in my work.
Servant. If you were very rich, would you have servants in your house?
No, if I were very rich, I wouldn't have servants in my house.
Wheel. Lorry. Does a lorry have fewer wheels than a car?
No, a lorry doesn't have fewer wheels than a car, it has more wheels.
Arrow. Centimetre. Metre. About how long is an arrow?
An arrow is about a metre long.
How many centimetres make a metre?
100 centimetres make a metre.
Beard. Do you know anybody who has a long beard?
Yes, I know somebody who has a long beard.
True. False. Paper. Newspaper. Is it false that the opposite of heaven is hell?
No, it isn't false that the opposite of heaven is hell. It's true.
Is everything we read in the newspapers true?
No, not everything we read in the newspapers is true. Some things are true and some things are false.
Why do you think this is so?
I think maybe it's because newspapers haven't always got time to make sure that what they write is completely true.
Maintain. Is it cheap to maintain a large house?
No, it isn't cheap to maintain a large house. It's expensive.
It takes. Ireland. How do we translate the words it takes?
We translate the words it takes with
How long does it take you to go home from here?
It takes me about an hour to go home from here.
Does it take longer to fly from here to Ireland than to go by train and ship?
No, it doesn't take longer to fly from here to Ireland than to go by train and ship. It takes less time.
About how long would it take us to reach the station from here if we walked very fast?
It'd take us about 5 minutes to reach the station from here if we walked very fast.
Amount. Amount to. What amount of money have you got in your pocket at the moment?
I've got about £5 in my pocket at the moment.
Do they use a large amount of wood in building houses in this region?
No, they don't use a large amount of wood in building houses in this region.
Why not?
Because it's expensive.
What do £50 and £13 amount to?
£50 and £13 amount to £63.
Further. Sweden. In addition. Extra. What does the word further mean?
The word further means the same as father, but it also means in addition or extra.
Which is further from Spain, Sweden or Switzerland?
Sweden is further from Spain than Switzerland.
What's the furthest you've ever been?
The furthest I've ever been is from England to Japan.
Where do you have to go if you wanted further information about train times at a station?
I'd have to go to the information office if I wanted further information about train times at a station.
Give me a further example of the word further, please.
If I failed an exam, I'd have to take further lessons.
Lesson 71. Past perfect. I had eaten. When do we use the present perfect?
We use the present perfect when we are thinking about time before and up to now.
Give me an example.
Mary cannot enter her flat because she has lost her key.
What does that sentence mean?
That sentence means that Mary does not know where her key is now because of losing it earlier today.
When do we use the past perfect?
We use the past perfect when we are thinking about time before and up to another point in the past.
Give me an example.
Mary could not enter her flat yesterday because she had lost her key.
What does that sentence mean?
That sentence means that Mary did not know where her key was yesterday because of losing it earlier in the day.
What's the difference between these two sentences? I ate my dinner at 9 o'clock and I had eaten my dinner at 9 o'clock.
The difference between these two sentences is that I ate my dinner at 9 o'clock means I started to eat my dinner at 9 o'clock, whereas I had eaten my dinner at 9 o'clock means that my dinner was already finished at 9 o'clock.
Had you had anything to eat before you came to school today?
Yes, I had had something to eat before I came to school today.
Had you ever seen me before you came to this school?
No, I had never seen you before I came to this school.
When you began your lessons at this school, had you already studied some English or were you a complete beginner?
When I began my lessons at this school, I had already studied some English.
Party, political. What does the word party mean?
The word party means...
Do you ever throw a party at home on your birthday?
Yes, I sometimes throw a party at home on my birthday.
Which is the strongest political party in your country today?
The Conservative Party is the strongest political party in my country today.
Do you prefer to go on holiday with a friend or in a large party?
I prefer to go on holiday with a friend.
Mad, crazy, UFO. What does the word mad mean?
The word mad means angry, very interested, and crazy.
Do some people get mad when they're driving in very heavy traffic?
Yes, some people get mad when they're driving in very heavy traffic.
What kind of things are you most mad about?
I'm most mad about music, films, sport, etc.
If a friend told you they had seen a UFO, would you believe them or think they were going mad?
If a friend told me they had seen a UFO, I wouldn't believe them. I'd think they were going mad.
Copy. What happens if one pupil copies from another during an exam?
If one pupil copies from another during an exam, he's sent out of the room.
When you answer a question during a Callan lesson, should you simply copy what the teacher says?
No, when I answer a question during a Callan lesson, I shouldn't simply copy what the teacher says. I should try to answer the question without waiting to hear the words from the teacher first.
If you were given 2 copies of the same book for your birthday, what would you do?
If I were given 2 copies of the same book for my birthday, I'd give one to a friend.
Influence. Does the weather have a strong influence over you? Do you, for example, feel happy in good weather and unhappy in bad weather?
Yes, the weather has a strong influence over me.
Mouse, mice. What is the name of the famous mouse in the cinema world?
The name of the famous mouse in the cinema world is Mickey Mouse.
What do mice like eating?
Mice like eating cheese, etc.
Throat. What part of the body's this?
It's the throat.
Opportunity. Which would you prefer? A job that gave you the opportunity to visit other countries, or a job that gave you the opportunity to earn a lot?
I'd prefer a job that gave me the opportunity to earn a lot.
Develop, industry, agriculture. What do we mean by the underdeveloped countries of the world?
By the underdeveloped countries of the world, we mean those with little industry, agriculture, etc.
Print. Where was this book printed?
This book was printed in Malta.
Sand. Beach. Desert. Where do we find sand?
We find sand on a beach, in a desert, etc.
When you're on holiday, do you enjoy lying on a beach in the sun?
Yes, when I'm on holiday, I enjoy lying on a beach in the sun.
Why is it difficult to live in a desert?
It's difficult to live in a desert because there is so little water.
Bell. Knock. Pay a visit. Ring. What am I doing?
You're knocking on the table.
Is there a bell in this school?
Yes, there's a bell in this school.
What do you do when you arrive at somebody's front door in order to pay a visit?
When I arrive at somebody's front door in order to pay a visit, I knock on the door or ring the doorbell.
Shout. When do people shout?
People shout when they're angry or when they think somebody can't hear them.
If there were some people shouting loudly outside in the corridor, would you be able to hear me?
No, if there were some people shouting loudly outside in the corridor, I wouldn't be able to hear you.
Stick. Walking stick. Do some people use walking sticks to help them move around when they get older?
Yes, some people use walking sticks to help them move around when they get older.
Which animals like to fetch sticks that you throw for them?
Dogs like to fetch sticks that you throw for them.
Would prefer plus infinitive with to. Where would you prefer to live? By a lake or by the sea?
I'd prefer to live by the sea.
This evening, would you prefer to go out for dinner or simply go home?
This evening, I'd prefer to go out for dinner.
Exclamation mark.
Lesson 72. NESS. Reason. Illness. Tiredness. Darkness. How do we sometimes form a noun from an adjective?
We sometimes form a noun from an adjective by adding the letters NESS to the adjective.
Give me an example.
Late, lateness.
When did you have your last illness?
I had my last illness 2 weeks ago.
What's the reason for tiredness?
The reason for tiredness is too much work, not enough sleep, etc.
What's the reason for darkness at night?
The reason for darkness at night is that the world turns completely round every 24 hours.
Alone. What's another way of saying he lives on his own?
Another way of saying he lives on his own is he lives alone.
Do you live alone or with other people?
I live with other people.
Do you prefer to go on holiday alone?
No, I don't prefer to go on holiday alone. I prefer to go in company.
Already. Has the lesson already finished?
No, the lesson hasn't finished yet. It's still in progress.
Are you already able to speak English without making any mistakes?
No, I'm not able to speak English without making any mistakes yet. I still make some mistakes.
Are we already in spring?
No, we aren't in spring yet. We're still in winter.
Have we already studied stage 4 of the Callan Method?
Yes, we've already studied stage 4 of the Callan Method.
Thrown. What are the 3 forms of throw?
The 3 forms of throw are throw, through, thrown.
Have you ever thrown anything away by mistake, which was worth a lot of money?
Yes, I've thrown something away by mistake, which was worth a lot of money.
What?
A ring.
In spite of. Despite. Why do some people do dangerous sports in spite of the danger?
Some people do dangerous sports in spite of the danger because they find them exciting.
Name some foods that are very popular despite being bad for the health.
Some foods that are very popular, despite being bad for the health, are chips, cakes, ice creams, etc.
Do you think it's worth learning a foreign language in spite of the fact that it's quite difficult?
Yes, I think it's worth learning a foreign language in spite of the fact that it's quite difficult.
In spite of studying a lot of words and grammar, do you still find English a little difficult?
Yes, in spite of studying a lot of words and grammar, I still find English a little difficult.
Anyone. Someone. No one. What words can we use instead of anybody, somebody, and nobody?
Instead of anybody, somebody, and nobody, we can use anyone, someone, and no one.
Did anyone come into the classroom at the beginning of the lesson?
Yes, someone came into the classroom at the beginning of the lesson.
Who went out of this room 2 minutes ago?
No one went out of this room 2 minutes ago.
Borrow. What's the opposite of the verb to lend?
The opposite of the verb to lend is to borrow.
Should we always give back the things we borrow?
Yes, we should always give back the things we borrow.
If you forgot to bring a pen with you to school, would you have to borrow one from another student?
Yes, if I forgot to bring a pen with me to school, I'd have to borrow one from another student.
My own. Emphasize. Give me an example of the word own after a possessive adjective.
This is my own book.
Do you live in your own house or flat, or does it belong to somebody else?
No, I don't live in my own house. It belongs to somebody else.
Do you think this is probably my own book, or do you think it belongs to the school?
I don't think that's your own book. I think it belongs to the school.
Skin. What's this?
It's your skin.
Wire. Electricity. Connection. Wireless. Wi-Fi. Hyphen. What do we use wire for?
We use wire to carry electricity, to connect things together, etc.
What do we mean by a wireless internet connection?
By a wireless internet connection, we mean that we can connect to the internet without connecting wires to our computer.
What can we say instead of a wireless internet connection?
Instead of a wireless internet connection, we can say Wi-Fi.
Do some bars and cafes offer free Wi-Fi to their customers?
Yes, some bars and cafes offer free Wi-Fi to their customers.
Spell the word Wi-Fi, please.
W-I-F-I.
Boil. Fry. Roast. Tell me 3 ways of cooking potatoes.
3 ways of cooking potatoes are boiling, frying, and roasting.
Do you prefer fried eggs or boiled eggs?
I prefer fried eggs.
How long does it take to boil potatoes?
It takes about 20 minutes to boil potatoes.
Brick. What's a wall normally built of?
A wall is normally built of bricks.
As well. To. Also. Where do the words as well, to, and also usually go?
The words as well and to go at the end of the sentence, but the word also usually goes after the first auxiliary verb.
Give me an example of each, please.
I will be sleeping at 3 a.m. My sister will be sleeping as well. My mother will be sleeping too. My brother will also be sleeping.
Give me an example of also when there is no auxiliary verb, please.
I love coffee and I also love tea.
Lesson 73. Future continuous. I will be speaking. When do we use the future continuous?
We use the future continuous for an action that will be in progress at a particular time in the future.
Give me an example, please.
I will be working at this time tomorrow.
What do you think you will be doing at this time tomorrow?
I think I'll be studying at this time tomorrow.
Will you still be studying English in 50 years' time?
No, I won't still be studying English in 50 years' time.
Where do you think you'll be living in 10 years' time?
I think I'll be living in London in 10 years' time.
Inch, foot, yard. What's this?
It's an inch.
What's this?
It's a foot.
What's this?
It's a yard.
How many centimeters make an inch?
About 2.5 centimeters make an inch.
How many inches make a foot?
12 inches make a foot.
How many feet make a yard?
3 feet make a yard.
Is a yard longer than a meter?
No, a yard isn't longer than a meter, it's shorter than a meter.
Consequently, when we run 100 yards, do we run further than 100 meters?
No, when we run 100 yards, we don't run further than 100 meters, we run less than 100 meters.
Chain. Are you wearing a chain?
No, I'm not wearing a chain.
What do we mean when we say someone is a chain smoker?
When we say someone is a chain smoker, we mean that he or she smokes one cigarette after another without stopping, like a chain.
Rise. Constantly. What's my book doing?
Your book's rising in the air.
Does the sun rise early in winter?
No, the sun doesn't rise early in winter, it rises late.
Is the cost of living constantly rising these days?
Yes, the cost of living is constantly rising these days.
What would you do if this table slowly began to rise into the air without anybody touching it?
If this table slowly began to rise into the air without anybody touching it, I'd run out of the room, etc.
Belt. Are you wearing a belt?
No, I'm not wearing a belt.
Hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. What do the words hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly mean?
The words hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly mean every hour, every day, every week, every month, and every year.
Do most radio stations have hourly traffic news?
Yes, most radio stations have hourly traffic news.
Which daily newspaper do you read?
I read the Evening Standard.
Do you read any weekly newspapers?
No, I don't read any weekly newspapers.
How many hours of English do you study monthly?
I study 40 hours of English monthly.
Where do you usually go for your yearly holidays?
I usually go to Spain for my yearly holidays.
Allow, let, every day. What's the difference between allow and let?
The difference between allow and let is that allow has the infinitive with to after it, whereas let has the infinitive without to after it.
Give me an example, please.
The doctor allowed me to change my appointment. The doctor let me change my appointment.
What sometimes happens when we let people borrow things that belong to us?
When we let people borrow things that belong to us, they sometimes don't return them.
Do you think it's a good idea to allow children to do as they please?
No, I don't think it's a good idea to allow children to do as they please.
Do you think it's dangerous these days to let people we don't know enter our houses?
No, I don't think it's dangerous these days to let people we don't know enter our houses.
Do you think more people would kill each other if the law of the country let them?
Yes, I think more people would kill each other if the law of the country let them.
Which is it right to say? I was let or I was allowed.
It's right to say I was allowed,
Why?
because we cannot use let in the passive voice.
Do you think students should be allowed to use their mobile phones during lessons?
No, I don't think students should be allowed to use their mobile phones during lessons.
Lesson 74. Anywhere. Somewhere. Not anywhere. Where? On the wall? Nowhere. Is there a book anywhere in this room?
Yes, there's a book somewhere in this room.
Is there a radio anywhere in this room?
No, there isn't a radio anywhere in this room.
If there's nowhere to sit on a bus, what do you have to do?
If there's nowhere to sit on a bus, I have to stand.
Is there anywhere near here I can buy foreign books?
Yes, there's somewhere near here you can buy foreign books.
Is there anywhere in this town I could get my hair cut for nothing?
No, there isn't anywhere in this town you could get your hair cut for nothing.
Where in the world can a man murder another man without breaking the law?
There's nowhere in the world where a man can murder another man without breaking the law.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
If I could live anywhere in the world, I'd live in Wales.
Why?
Because it's beautiful and the people are lovely.
Loose. Loosen. Do you think it's okay to let dogs run around loose, or do you think they should be kept on a chain?
I think dogs should be kept on a chain.
Why do people in hot countries wear loose clothes?
People in hot countries wear loose clothes to keep themselves cool.
Are there any loose stones on the road outside this school?
Yes, there are some loose stones on the road outside this school.
Why does a man sometimes loosen his tie?
A man sometimes loosens his tie because it's more comfortable.
Storm. Lightning. Thunder. What's a storm?
A storm is a short period of very bad weather.
What do we sometimes see and hear in a storm?
We sometimes see lightning and hear thunder in a storm.
Blind. How do blind people read?
Blind people read with special books made for them, which they can read by touching the words.
Devil. Where does the devil live?
The devil lives in hell.
Ride. Cycle. Can you ride a horse?
Yes, I can ride a horse.
Do you like riding on buses?
Yes, I like riding on buses.
What's another way of saying, I ride a bike every day?
Another way of saying, I ride a bike every day is, I cycle every day.
May. Can. Could. Permission. What words do we use when we ask for permission to do something?
We use may, can, or could when we ask for permission to do something.
Give me 3 examples, please.
May I smoke? Can I open the window? Could I borrow your pen, please?
Catch. Raincoat. In what kind of expressions do we use the word catch?
We use the word catch in expressions such as catch a ball, catch a train, catch a cold, etc.
What am I doing?
You're throwing your pen into the air and catching it.
Are you the kind of person who usually has to run hard at the last moment in order to catch a bus or a train?
No, I'm not the kind of person who usually has to run hard at the last moment in order to catch a bus or a train.
If you walked in the rain without carrying an umbrella or wearing a raincoat, what might happen?
If I walked in the rain without carrying an umbrella or wearing a raincoat, I'd get wet and might catch a cold.
Cap. Why is it a good idea to wear a cap in hot, sunny weather?
It's a good idea to wear a cap in hot, sunny weather because it protects your head and eyes from the sun.
Habit. Be in the habit of doing. What's the most common way to speak about our habits?
The most common way to speak about our habits is to use the present simple or past simple.
Give me an example, please.
I play football every weekend. I always studied hard before exams at university.
Does your father smoke?
Yes, my father smokes.
Did you usually go to bed early when you were a small child?
Yes, I usually went to bed early when I was a small child.
What's your worst habit?
My worst habit is that I smoke.
Are you in the habit of speaking to yourself when you're alone?
Yes, I'm in the habit of speaking to myself when I'm alone.
What were you in the habit of doing at the weekend when you were a little child?
I was in the habit of visiting my grandmother at the weekend when I was a little child.
Stranger. Foreigner. What's the difference between a stranger and a foreigner?
The difference between a stranger and a foreigner is that a stranger is somebody we don't know, whereas a foreigner is somebody from another country.
Snowstorm.
Lesson 75. Look like. What famous person would you most like to look like?
I'd most like to look like Robert De Niro.
What does he look like?
He's quite good looking. He has dark hair and dark eyes.
Do you look more like your mother or your father?
I look more like my mother.
Do you think it looks like rain or looks as if it is going to rain?
No, I don't think it looks like rain.
Do you think you look like succeeding or look as if you will succeed in learning English quite well?
Yes, I think I look like succeeding in learning English quite well.
Travel. Journey. Just. What's the difference between travel and journey?
The difference between travel and journey is that we generally use travel as a verb and journey as a noun.
Why is it now easier for people to travel to other countries just for the weekend?
It's now easier for people to travel to other countries just for the weekend because travelling is cheaper and faster these days.
What's the longest journey you've ever made?
The longest journey I've ever made is from England to Australia.
Of course. Give me a sentence with the words "of course" in it, please.
Could I borrow your pen for a second? Of course you can. He's American, and so, of course, he speaks English.
Nowadays. Do you think people are happier nowadays than they were in the past?
Yes, I think people are happier nowadays than they were in the past.
Why?
Because people are healthier and live longer nowadays.
Suffer. Have you suffered from any illnesses in the last 2 years?
No, I haven't suffered from any illnesses in the last 2 years.
Wish. What's your greatest wish in life?
My greatest wish in life is to be happy.
Exist. About how long has this building existed for?
This building has existed for more than 100 years.
Remind. In other words, member. What's the difference between the words remember and remind?
The difference between the words remember and remind is that we remember something ourselves without help, whereas if we forget something, somebody reminds us. In other words, they remember for us.
If you forget the meaning of a word during the lesson, who reminds you of it?
If I forget the meaning of a word during the lesson, the teacher reminds me of it.
If you have an important appointment to keep, which member of your family reminds you to keep it?
If I have an important appointment to keep, my mother reminds me to keep it.
Do I remind you of any member of your family?
No, you don't remind me of any member of my family.
Library. What's the difference between a bookshop and a library?
The difference between a bookshop and a library is that a bookshop is a place where we can buy books, whereas a library is a place where we can go to read books and borrow them.
Even though. Even. Not even. When you were a child, did you sometimes have to go to school, even though you didn't want to?
Yes, when I was a child, I sometimes had to go to school, even though I didn't want to.
Are there some areas of the world where it never gets warm, even in the middle of summer?
Yes, there are some areas of the world where it never gets warm, even in the middle of summer.
Will there be even more people and more cars in the world in a few years' time?
Yes, there'll be even more people and more cars in the world in a few years' time.
Do you know of a village in this country where they haven't even got water or electricity?
No, I don't know of a village in this country where they haven't even got water or electricity.
2. At. Direction. What's the difference between the words to and at?
The difference between the words to and at is that we generally use to when we are moving in the direction of a place, and at when we are there.
Give me an example, please.
I'm going to the table, and now I'm at the table.
Are you coming to the school?
No, I'm not coming to the school, I'm at the school.
Am I going to the table?
No, you aren't going to the table, you're standing at the table.
Soon. At once. If I go out of the room and say I'll be back soon, how long will I be?
If you go out of the room and say, I'll be back soon, you'll be maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
If I go out of the room and say I'll be back at once, how long will I be?
If you go out of the room and say, I'll be back at once, you'll be about 1 minute, or you'll be back almost immediately.
Will it soon be spring?
Yes, it'll soon be spring.
Is the lesson going to finish soon?
Yes, the lesson's going to finish soon.
How soon do you think it will be before everybody in the world has enough money in order to live a comfortable life?
I think it'll be a long time before everybody in the world has enough money in order to live a comfortable life.
Which would get you home sooner, a bus or a car?
I think maybe a car would get me home sooner than a bus.
Lesson 76. Need. What would you do if you needed a haircut?
If I needed a haircut, I'd go to a hairdresser's.
What do you think you need more than anything else in your life?
I think I need my family more than anything else in my life.
What do you think your country needs more than anything else?
I think my country needs jobs more than anything else.
Towards. Destination. What does the word towards mean?
The word towards means in the direction of.
What am I doing?
You're walking towards the door.
If I tell you that I am driving towards Scotland, does that necessarily mean that Scotland is my destination?
No. If you tell me that you are driving towards Scotland, that doesn't necessarily mean that Scotland is your destination.
Tray. What do we use a tray for?
We use a tray for carrying plates and cups from one room to another.
Stadium. Where is the nearest sports stadium?
The nearest sports stadium is in Wembley.
About how many people does it hold?
It holds about 85,000 people.
Much better. Much more. Why do you speak English much better now than you did 6 months ago?
I speak English much better now than I did 6 months ago because I've had much more practice.
Why is a Rolls-Royce much more expensive than an ordinary car?
A Rolls-Royce is much more expensive than an ordinary car because it takes longer to make than an ordinary car.
Contrary. Fall. Temperature. Atmosphere. What's another word for opposite?
Another word for opposite is contrary.
What's the contrary of the verb to rise?
To fall is the contrary of the verb to rise.
Is the temperature of the atmosphere falling this month?
No, the temperature of the atmosphere isn't falling this month, it's rising.
If your body temperature falls a lot, what should you do?
If my body temperature falls a lot, I should go to bed and call a doctor.
Tooth, teeth, toothbrush, dentist. What's the plural of tooth?
The plural of tooth is teeth.
What do we clean our teeth with?
We clean our teeth with a toothbrush.
If you have a problem with your teeth, who should you go to see?
If I have a problem with my teeth, I should go to see a dentist.
Seem. Does it seem to you as if it'll rain later?
Yes, it seems to me as if it'll rain later.
Why do some people seem younger than they really are?
Some people seem younger than they really are because of the way they look, the way they talk, the things they do, etc.
Does it seem warmer to you today than it was yesterday?
Yes, it seems warmer to me today than it was yesterday.
Several. Are you ill several times during the year?
Yes, I'm ill several times during the year.
Do some very rich people have houses in several different countries?
Yes, some very rich people have houses in several different countries.
Compose. Be composed of. Did Mozart compose a lot of music?
Yes, Mozart composed a lot of music.
Do you find it difficult to compose formal letters?
No, I don't find it difficult to compose formal letters. I find it easy.
How many letters is the English alphabet composed of?
The English alphabet is composed of 26 letters.
Is Europe composed of several different countries?
Yes, Europe's composed of several different countries.
Wise. Wisdom. Do you agree that it's wise to put some money in the bank each month for later on in life?
Yes, I agree that it's wise to put some money in the bank each month for later on in life.
Do you think wisdom comes more with age or experience?
I think wisdom comes more with experience.
Suddenly. If I suddenly threw my pen at you, would you be able to catch it?
No, if you suddenly threw your pen at me, I wouldn't be able to catch it.
Pain. What's the greatest physical pain you've ever suffered?
The greatest physical pain I've ever suffered was when I broke my leg.
Certain. Is there anything in life that we can be completely certain of?
Yes, there's something in life that we can be completely certain of. Death.
Pass by. From where you're sitting, can you see people passing by the window?
No, from where I'm sitting, I can't see people passing by the window.
Park. Car park. When a car park is full, where does a driver have to park his car?
When a car park is full, a driver has to park his car in the street.
Picture.
Lesson 77. Third conditional. First conditional. If plus present plus will do equals real possibility. If I go to the park tomorrow, I will play football. Second conditional. If plus past plus would do equals only imagining. If I went to the park tomorrow, I would play football. When do we use the first conditional?
We use the first conditional to communicate that we think something is a real possibility in the future.
What is its construction?
Its construction is if plus present plus will do.
Give me an example, please.
If he sees his friend this evening, he will say hello.
When do we use the second conditional?
We use the second conditional to communicate that we are only imagining something.
What is its construction?
Its construction is if plus past plus would do.
Give me an example, please.
If she went to the North Pole next week, she would feel very cold.
Third conditional. If plus past perfect plus would have done equals imagining in the past. If I had gone to the park yesterday, I would have played football. When do we use the third conditional?
We use the third conditional when we are imagining something in the past that did not really happen.
What is its construction?
Its construction is if plus past perfect plus would have done.
Give me an example, please.
If she had studied harder, she would have succeeded in the exam last month.
In the third conditional, what do we put after the word would?
In the third conditional, we put the word have and the past participle after the word would.
Give me some examples, please.
He would have slept. She would have written. They would have eaten.
If you had been born in England, which language would you have spoken as a child?
If I had been born in England, I would have spoken English as a child.
Were you, in fact, born in England?
No, I wasn't in fact born in England. I was born in Japan.
Did you find £100 on the street yesterday?
No, I didn't find £100 on the street yesterday.
But if you had found £100 on the street yesterday, what would you have done with it?
If I had found £100 on the street yesterday, I would have taken it to the police station.
If you had not decided to study English, which language would you have studied instead?
If I had not decided to study English, I would have studied French instead.
If you had not come to school last week, what would you have done instead?
If I had not come to school last week, I would have gone on holiday, stayed at home, etc.
Diary. What do people use diaries for?
People use diaries to help them remember things that they have done or things that they need to do.
Character. What kind of character do you like to see in a person?
I like to see a friendly character in a person.
Really? Have you ever got up really early?
Yes, I've sometimes got up really early.
For what reason?
To go to work.
If you were driving a car on a long journey and suddenly felt really tired, what would you do?
If I were driving a car on a long journey and suddenly felt really tired, I'd stop the car, buy a cup of coffee, and wait until I felt more awake.
Ran. What's the past of run?
The past of run is ran.
If you ran against him or me, etc., who do you think could win?
If I ran against him, I think I would win.
Improve. Coach. How can we improve our English?
We can improve our English by practicing a lot, reading a lot, etc.
Why do even the best tennis players need a coach?
Even the best tennis players need a coach to help them to improve their game.
Is it cheaper to travel by coach or by train in your country?
It's cheaper to travel by coach in my country.
Adverbs formed from adjectives. Tell me one very common way of forming adverbs from adjectives.
One very common way of forming adverbs from adjectives is by adding the letters ly to the adjective.
Give me some examples, please.
Bad, badly. Quick, quickly, etc.
Flew. What's the past of fly?
The past of fly is flew.
If you flew round the world in a straight line, would you finish in the same place as you had started?
Yes, if I flew round the world in a straight line, I'd finish in the same place as I had started.
If a bird flew into this room, what did you do?
If a bird flew into this room, I'd probably try to catch it.
Wool. Which animal do we get wool from?
We get wool from a sheep.
What can we make from wool?
We can make pullovers, hats and scarves from wool.
Possessive case of plural nouns ending in S. Apostrophe. Case. How do we form the possessive case of singular nouns, like girl, man, child, etc.?
We form the possessive case of singular nouns, like girl, man, child, etc., by adding an apostrophe and the letter S.
Give me some examples, please.
The girl's coat, the old man's hat, a child's book.
How do we form the possessive case of plural nouns that do not end in S, such as men, women, children, etc.?
We form the possessive case of plural nouns that do not end in S, such as men, women, children, etc., in the same way, by adding an apostrophe and the letter S.
Give me some examples, please.
The old men's hats, children's books, women's clothes.
How do we form the possessive case of a plural noun which already ends in S?
We form the possessive case of a plural noun which already ends in S just by adding an apostrophe but no S.
Give me some examples, please.
The girls' coats, the workers' clothes, ladies' dresses.
What do footballers' shirts have written on their backs?
Footballers' shirts have numbers written on their backs.
Kick. What am I doing?
You're kicking the table.
Coast. Certain. Can the English coast be seen from the coast of France?
Yes, on certain days, the English coast can be seen from the coast of France.
Tire. Do you ever tire of speaking?
Yes, I sometimes tire of speaking.